Television can control public opinion more effectively than armies of secret police because television is entirely voluntary. The American government forces our children to attend school, but nobody forces them to watch TV. Americans of all ages submit to television. Television is the American ideal, persuasion without coercion. Nobody makes us watch. Who could have predicted that a free people would voluntarily spend one-fifth of their lives sitting in front of a box with pictures? 15 years sitting in prison is punishment, but 15 years sitting in front of a television set is entertainment. And the average American now spends more than 1.5 years of his life just watching television commercials. 50 minutes every day of his life watching commercials. Now that's power. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City, and I'm very excited because tonight we'll be doing a pretty cool double feature on two films from 1981. One of them written and directed by Michael Crichton, later better known for Jurassic Park. And this is his 1981 feature film Looker, starring Albert Finney and James Coburn. And we're going to be starting that in just a few minutes here. And then later on tonight at 11 p.m., we will do a commentary for Peter Hyam's Outland, starring Sean Connery. And both these movies not only came out in the same year of 1981, but they also came out by the same production company, which is the Ladd Company. And in fact, we are paused on the Ladd Company logo for Looker, which will start here in just a few minutes. And as you can see on these Blu-rays, even though it's very, very small, but yeah, you can see there right above the Warner Brothers logo, a Ladd Company release. And of course, Ladd, refers to Alan Ladd Jr., who was at 20th Century Fox throughout the 70s, and he gave the green light to George Lucas to do Star Wars. And then in 1980, he left Warner Brothers to start his own company, which is the Ladd Company, along with another 20th Century Fox executive named Gareth Wiggin, who we will mention later on today in today's film. But at any rate, I think we better go ahead and get started. I hope everybody's out there ready to go. I have the movie Looker paused on the Ladd Company logo with the tree, and we will go ahead and get started in just I'll count down from 3, 2, 1, and play. And here we have the classic Ladd Company logo, and the music that is underneath the logo is actually from John Williams, who of course did Star Wars and Superman and many other wonderful films, still one of the most famous of all music composers. He actually did that little score underneath the Ladd Company tree logo, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, we open up on Looker here with a commercial. In fact, what we're going to see in this movie are a series of fake commercials, which are all about beauty and beauty products and how the mainstream media likes to say that, women should be as beautiful as they possibly can be. And so they advertise all these products. And this has been going on for, since television has been around and everything. I remember looking at the commercials for the Star Wars holiday special, which had a commentary from the Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys. And, they were joking during one commercial, which, by the way, these commercials of feminine hygiene product actually were put into the Star Wars holiday special, and the little kids would watch these commercials where one would be about a perfume, and then they would say, your husband's secretary should be wearing this, shouldn't you? And making stuff like that up. Oh, hey, Born to Be Rad just came in. Love this movie. I've been watching a lot on Criterion lately. Westworld is amazing too. Yeah, I've never seen Westworld, but that is, of course, the very first film that Michael Crichton worked on with Yul Brynner, which came out in 1973. Sup, Stone? The theme song is amazing for this flick. Yes, we're about to start the theme song here in a minute. and I was going to go ahead and talk about that. And here we have Albert Finney, and who we will talk about later as well. But what we should mention first is, of course, the woman here, which is in this opening sequence, and of course is underneath the titles and everything. This was, in fact, Terry Wells, who was the Playboy Playmate of 1981. And as you can see from these quick nude shots, oh yeah, she was built. She was absolutely built. And here we have a wonderful song by Sue Sad. That's her name. When she came out in the 70s, she had a band called Sue Sad and the Next. And she does a title song right here for Looker, which is actually very, very catchy. Hide the side she never shows. Yeah, she's a looker. Yeah, that's how this song is rolling. But like I said, this was Terry Wells, the Playboy Playmate of the year of 1981. And she was also dating Michael Crichton at this time. Lucky guy. Uh, of course, oh yeah, I promise you, you're going to be in the opening sequence of my movie and everything. Now, I mean, like I said, this came out from the Lad Company through Warner Brothers, and it didn't. It was a bomb in theaters. I mean, it had like an $8 to $10 million budget, and it completely bombed. It only made $3 million. But yeah, there's Terry Wells, who of course was dating the director at the time, and of course he gets to show her off here in this opening sequence, written and directed by Michael Crichton. Now, when people think of Michael Crichton nowadays, they always seem to think of Jurassic Park. But in reality, it was the other book that he was famous for, which is called Congo. What happened is that they were going to make a film version of his book Congo, until the studio realized, oh, wait a minute. These gorillas, they're like an endangered species, so we can't really use them on film and everything. Now, you just noticed a flash there, and it looks like that she's like in a trance for like a minute here. It's actually a pretty effective opening. See, and the weird thing about this movie is that I think it starts off really well, and for an hour, it's actually not bad. And then it just kind of like sinks under its own weight near the end. Part of it is due to the fact that it deletes an entire sequence, which is kind of crucial to the plot. Whether that was due to the Lad Company or Warner Brothers, I cannot say for sure. But there is a 8-minute deleted sequence where the villain basically explains what the hell his end game is, and that was actually cut. Resulting in a very short 93-minute movie that should have been more like 101 minutes. This opening is actually very reminiscent of like the slasher movies that were playing that were in abundance at the time. And that's the thing, is that with this movie and what we learn about it so far, you would think that this movie would have been just another slasher movie. I mean, just from these opening 15 minutes. But as we know, there's a case in her bedroom where apparently some kind of weapon was removed while she was outside. Now, wait a minute. What happened? So we noticed a flash. She was stunned out in the hallway for a minute, and now she came in and she looks at there's this empty gun case on her bed. I mean, what would you think? All right, Mike, we get it. Yes, you're dating a very, very hot woman. You don't have to rub it into people. Yeah, it's like okay, just walk around the bedroom in your underwear. I just want to be able to get like 10 minutes of this. And that's the outline of an actor named Tim Rosevich, who we will talk about in length a little bit later as well. And there we have a few more flashes, wondering what's going on. And then she ends up wrapping herself in the curtain and falling off the balcony to her death. Well, she managed to drop the dog first. I guess Michael Crichton was like, no, you have to drop the dog. You can't take the dog with you down to the pavement. But yeah, this is very much like, I mean, you would have think that was a knife. No, it was actually a pen. And that's a weird looking gun, which we will talk about a bit later. It's not. It's more like a light gun, which is used for these the, used to trance these supermodels into falling to their death. But that's a pretty nice bedroom. So yeah, that was Terry Wells, the Playboy playmate of 1981, who was also dating Michael Crichton at the time, and she's officially gone now. And so now we meet Albert Finney as he's coming into his work. He's a plastic surgeon, and obviously he's surrounded by some quite beautiful people, quite beautiful women that in the commentary, Michael Crichton mentions that he was not around for the casting of all these beautiful women, these lookers, as you could say that they are. Albert Finney is, of course, most famous for the 1963 Best Picture winner Tom Jones. Which was directed by Tony Richardson. And while Albert Finney did not win the Academy Award for Best Actor, he was nominated. In fact, it was Tony Richardson who won both Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director for Tom Jones back in 1963. But that's essentially his most famous role. I mean, he was born in 1936 in Lancashire, England. And early on in his career, before Tom Jones, he had done a movie called Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, directed by Arthur Seaton, where he won the BAFTA Award for Most Promising Newcomer to Leading Film Roles, and also the Mar del Plata International Film Festival for Best Actor. Now, many people who went to go see the movie Erin Brockovich probably had completely forgotten who Albert Finney was by that time. That was actually the first time I discovered him, when I saw him in Erin Brockovich playing opposite Julia Roberts and everything. But here we have his co-star in this movie named Susan Day. And Michael Crichton mentioned several times on the commentary that she did these blowing the bubble gum several times, and she would get it right every single time. He was very worried that they would waste a lot of time with takes and everything, but she managed to blow bubbles very well on camera, and so she did it a couple times and nailed it. But at any rate, so after Tom Jones, Albert Finney would do a series of roles where he played Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. He won the Golden Globe for that for the 1970 feature film. He was also nominated for a BAFTA Award for Gumshoe in 1971. He was also in Murder on the Orient Express, the original 1974 version. The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother, which I believe that was Gene Wilder. Yeah, that was Gene Wilder. Mm-hmm. And then he was in The Duelists, which was the very first film that Ridley Scott directed. As well as also this year in 1981, he had also done a underrated film called Wolfen, directed by Michael Wadley, which is his only feature film. He had won the Oscar for directing the documentary Woodstock back in 1970. And so he only made one theatrical feature film, and that was Wolfen, where Albert Finney starred as Detective Dewey Wilson. And that was the same year as Looker, and he also did Shoot the Moon, right after this with director Alan Parker, which unfortunately bombed in '82. He was also in Annie as Daddy Warbucks. A lot of people remember him from that. The Dresser, Under the Volcano. And Under the Volcano is actually really good, but it's also really depressing based on a book about a guy at literally the end of his life and, succumbing to alcohol and everything. But Aaron Brockovich, he really got a lot of awards when he appeared in that opposite Julia Roberts. A lot of people were glad to see him playing a very loose comedy role in that almost. But he had won the SAG Award for Outstanding Performance for that year. And he was also in Traffic, Big Fish, Ocean's 12, Corpse Bride. And his very last movie was actually the James Bond film Skyfall, which was released in 2012. And I think a lot of people were predicting that he would be James Bond's father in that. But in reality, he ended up just being the caretaker of the Bond estate. And see, just 1 second here. And this gentleman that he's conversing with right now, this is Dorian Harewood as Lieutenant Masters, who is of course investigating how these supermodels ended up dead in very unusual ways, and they had all gone to see Albert Finney for basically minor plastic surgery, touch-ups that they obviously did not need. I mean, in the opening sequence, you saw Albert Finney talk to Michael Crichton's girlfriend, who was the Playboy Playmate of the Year, and said, well, you don't need any of these. And these were like the most minor of changes, like a half an inch here. And, you have to get rid of a mole on my ribs, that kind of thing. It was just, the most ridiculously minor adjustments. When, you look at her and you think, look, you don't need any adjustments. Hell, in 20 years, you won't need any adjustments. But this movie was made at the time where plastic surgery was kind of an untalked about, undiscussed thing. I mean, it was something that was kind of kept under wraps. But of course, what Looker is primarily known for is, and we'll bring it up when we come to it, which is the idea of neuromarketing, and also the first ever film to create 3D shading with a computer that produced the first ever CGI human character. And so that's actually the most important element of Looker. Although the truth of the matter is that, look, a lot of this technology is hopelessly dated, and yet it's still fascinating from a historical perspective. Although there's some shades in this movie which I would never wear to save my life, and I'm not really talking about the ones that she's wearing. We'll see some other shades later on, which just they look so garish for even for 1981. And so what was Michael Crichton's inspiration for this? Well, he started thinking about this subject in 1975. He says he went to Los Angeles. He said he went to a Los Angeles computer company to find out how they could create copies in commercials without looking too ridiculous, and discovered how a company in Texas was already doing it called tomography. And of course, tomography is a technique for displaying a representation of a cross section through a human body or other solid object using X-rays or ultrasound. And Michael Crichton, he wanted to explore the dangers of this technology and how people could use it for obviously financial gain at the expense of others. You know, this is a classic example of profits over people. And we don't meet the villain played by James Coburn for a while. I mean, we meet him actually around the 20-minute mark, and then we almost completely forget about his character, even though he's supposed to be the villain. And in fact, when this movie was cut, it was James Coburn himself who actually complained about a lot of his footage being cut, because it kind of made the movie a little incomprehensible in some ways, which, yeah, I can kind of agree with him on that. Just to bring up his exact quote, though. James Coburn later said about working on Looker, "My part was pretty much on the cutting room floor. They really pissed that film away. They had Albert Finney running around in a security guard's uniform throughout the film. It didn't make any sense. It could have been a good picture. It was about how television controls. It was about how commercials manipulate people to buy products, politicians, whatever the case may be. But they cut the film up for a television print. I don't know why they did that. They spent some bread on the picture, too. It was a $12 million production. That's not much today, but back then it was a pretty big budget. And like I said, Looker, this was, you know, it was poorly received by the critics. It only made $3 million on a $12 million budget. And for the Lad Company, this was really the only failure that year, because okay, now this always reminds me of the when I first saw this, I kept thinking of the opening of Lethal Weapon, but this is actually a pretty awesome stunt. And that stunt woman did it. She actually did it in her underwear, which is pretty extraordinary. Damn. And there's Tim Rosevich again, who, like I said, he doesn't have a single word in this movie. He doesn't have a single line of dialogue, and he doesn't even have a character name. I'm not kidding when I say in the end credits he's actually billed as Mustache Man. Yeah, that's his character. He plays the Mustache Man in Looker. But he's going to be actually in another Lad Company release that we'll do a commentary on later this month. And he's also in one of my all-time favorite films called Cloak and Dagger, where he was one of the spies who worked with Michael Murphy in going after Henry Thomas, who had a game with stolen government plans in it for an invisible bomber. And here again, not much of a role, but, you know, I like him as a character actor. And like I said, when we see him in the next Lad Company feature, I mean, he has a particularly fun role in that. Now, here we have Dorian Harewood again as Lieutenant Masters. He's best known for playing Jesse Owens in the 1984 film The Jesse Owens Story, Paul Strober on Strike Force, and Reverend Morgan Hamilton on the show Seventh Heaven. And he's still with us. He's 71 years old now. He won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actor in a Drama Series for I'll Fly Away. And before Looker, he was only in a handful of films. I mean, he was in Sparkle, 1976, which eventually got a remake a few years ago. Gray Lady Down, which was, Charlton Heston and David Carradine in 1978. And then after Looker, Taylor Hackford cast him in Against All Odds. Then the 1984 movie Tank, The Falcon and the Snowman, Full Metal Jacket, where he played 8-Ball, Pacific Heights, Solar Crisis, The Page Master, Sudden Death, directed by Peter Hyams, who we'll be talking about a little bit later for the Outland commentary. Glitter, Gothica, Levity, Assault on Precinct 13, the 2005 remake, and Billy and Mandy's Big Boogie Adventure. And his last film so far is Mayor Cupcake. Although he has done some television work in the past few years, too. I mean, he was in, like I said, Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and other things like that. But here we have the second song on the soundtrack by Sue Sad. And we should go ahead and talk about her for a bit, because she did 2 songs for this. and it's basically the only songs in the movie. I mean, we hear two songs from her, and then I mean, and like I said, even though they did put out a soundtrack for promotional reasons, we never had an official soundtrack of Looker with those songs put out. But Susad and the Next, they were an American new wave band from LA, and its self-titled first album reached number 131 in the U.S. Billboard 200 in 1980. They also did soundtracks for Roadie, as well as the cult film Radioactive Dreams from 1985, and and obviously she performed the main theme for Looker, as we heard in the beginning, as well as this other additional song which just ended called High Wire. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here we have another beautiful woman by the name of Lee Taylor Young. Now, Lee Taylor Young, I only really know her from one other film, which was actually the forgotten 1985 comedy Secret Admirer, where she played the wife of the late Fred Ward in that. And he goes off to talk to Dee Wallace, and you know, the parents get in all these, you know, extramarital shenanigans. But actually, she was in quite a few films before this. She was in I Love You, Alice B. Tokias, The Big Bounce, Under the Yum Yum Tree, The Games, The Buttercup Chain, The Horseman, Soylent Green, the classic Charlton Heston movie. She was in Can't Stop the Music, which won the Razzie Award for Worst Picture right before this. Her role in that is actually not one of my favorites. And then between that and Secret Admirer, she did this part here in Looker as James Coburn's confidant, who helps out the models in terms of getting all their scans so they can use Lifetime without being paid, essentially. So yeah, let's emphasize what the plot of this movie is, because admittedly, the first time I saw this, I was rather a little confused, but I think I got it now. So basically, Dr. Larry Roberts here, played by Albert Finney, he's a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. He has a really nice house in Malibu, which Michael Crichton actually lived in Malibu at this time too, with the Playboy Playmate of the Year in 1981, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, and But he's working also in television commercials to request cosmetic surgery to make changes so minor as to be imperceptible to the naked eye. So these women, they want to do these commercials, but they want to be as perfect as possible, even making all these minor adjustments, which of course are rather ridiculous. But of course, these models, they start dying under very mysterious circumstances. And so Dr. Roberts discovers they are all linked to the same advertisement research firm, which is Digital Matrix, run by James Coburn here, with Lee Taylor Young as his lovely assistant. And basically, they rate advertising models using a scoring system to measure the combined visual impact of various physical attributes in television commercials. In an experiment to increase their scores, some models are sent to Dr. Roberts to get cosmetic surgery to maximize their visual impact. Though the models are physically perfect after the surgery, they're still not effective as desired, so the research firm decides to use a different approach. Each model is offered a contract to have her body scanned digitally to create 3D computer-generated models. Then the 3D models are animated for the use in commercials. So when you think you're watching a commercial and that's a real person, no, actually it's their 3D computer-generated image of themselves. And here again, I mean, CGI didn't come into theaters. I mean, it didn't come into movies until way later, like in the late 90s. I mean, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan was actually the first movie to utilize CGI. Except here, Michael Crichton comments on computer-generated image with its in a rather grisly manner, emphasizing how this corporation is using these digitally scanned 3D models so they can, well, not only profit off of them, but once they but then they go ahead and just kill the supermodels so they don't have to worry about anything after that. So Dr. Roberts here, he becomes suspicious and he decides to investigate Digital Matrix. He has a strong interest in investigating these deaths, especially when he obviously becomes a prime suspect by the police. Now, in 1981, this was all not exactly groundbreaking stuff. I mean, because the story itself is pretty formulaic. I mean, it's set over this long weekend as we have Albert Finney trying to figure out who was responsible for killing these supermodels. And Susan Day right here is going to help him in trying to figure out who was responsible. Now, I honestly have never seen Susan Day in anything before, but she's still with us. She's 69, and she's best known for playing Laurie Partridge on The Partridge Family from 1970 to 1974, as well as Grace Van Owen on the drama series L.A. Law from 1986 to 1992. She's a 3-time Emmy Award nominee and a 6-time Golden Globe Award nominee, and she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Drama Series for L.A. Law in 1988. Now, we can talk a little bit more about Susan Day later, but because the director on the set here, who will disappear and we will never see him again after this sequence, is played by Terry Kaiser. And Terry Kaiser is best known as Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's, the dead body that they carry around throughout the whole movie. There he is right there. And he was later in Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. I actually saw him at a convention once, but I didn't ask for any autographs because to be honest, aside from Weekend at Bernie's, I barely know anything he's in. Oh, now here's a quick shot right there. That guy with the microphone that he was just talking to, the briefest of cameos, but that is in fact an actor by the name of Darryl Mori. And Darryl Mori starred in one of my favorite films of the 1970s, which is Massacre at Central High. And here he just has a bit part with only one line in it. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, Darryl Mori. Because he didn't do a whole lot after Massacre at Central High, but he's still in LA and he's still doing stuff. He participated in the bonus features for Massacre at Central High, which are available through Synapse. And in fact, that movie is going to be re-released here pretty soon by another company. I forget which. One of the stories that Michael Crichton tells on the commentary track is that his cinematographer, who was a man by the name of Paul Lohman, yeah, that's his name. His cinematographer had this bulldog named Pig, and so when they were shooting on the beach here, they weren't shooting; they were having lunch or whatever, and he just called out to his bulldog and just said "Pig." And wouldn't you know it, about half of the women on the beach, turned to look at him. And the director, Michael Crichton, was, of course, very embarrassed at that point. It was like, no. He's not talking to any of you ladies. He's not referring to any of you as pigs. But I'm telling you, there's some ridiculously gorgeous women in this film. I mean, aside from, like I said, the Playboy Playmate of the Month a year that we saw earlier, every woman in this film had to have been perfect. I mean, essentially, because that's the whole gist of the movie. These quote unquote perfect women who feel the need to get more perfect for television commercials. And of course, this comments on Hollywood's very unhealthy practice of promoting beauty above anything else, and forcing women to with ridiculous eating strategies and everything. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's an industry that I think that hasn't really been, gotten the attention that it should in terms of what they are doing, in terms of telling all these women that beauty is everything and that they should do everything they can to look as great as possible when they usually look great anyway. I mean, So, I mean, but this is of the four films that the Lad Company released in 1981, this is the weakest one. And I wouldn't say it's a bad movie so much as just a mediocre one, because, I mean, obviously the things that were supposed to be cool back in 1981 are no longer cool anymore. Granted, Michael Crichton, he was very suspicious of brand new technologies, as we have seen in his other works, and he wanted to look at this particular technology that was used for nefarious purposes in terms of scanning all these supermodels and then using them for these commercials where they're not even physically there. But I mean, the first time I watched this, I was just kind of thinking, you know what, this is not really going anywhere. This story, it kind of runs out of juice at a certain point about an hour into it. Oh, but here, now this is very, very interesting. Now, neuromarketing, as it's been coined, it loosely refers to the measurement of physiological and neural signals to gain insight into customers' motivations, preferences, and decisions, which can help inform creative advertising, product development, pricing, and other marketing areas. When I was growing up, I remember a book that my father had picked up in the 1970s called Subliminal Seduction, and on the cover there was a glass of like brandy or some kind of alcohol, and basically, does this picture turn you on? The different how we respond to different images and commercials and all that stuff. I mean, it was actually a pretty in-depth scientific study on how we react to these commercials and what our focus is on usually by these commercials, and what ends up making us interested in the product. See, of course, he couldn't keep his eyes off the woman in the bikini. Obviously, it's like, well, it's a nice bathing suit. Take liberties wherever you go. But honestly, okay, like, none of these are bad actors. They really aren't. I mean, Albert Finney and James Coburn, they've been in many other good films. This one, though, nobody stands out. There is not really a memorable performance anywhere in this movie. I mean, I'll be quite frank. I do think that Albert Finney looks like he's almost sleepwalking half the time. I mean, he doesn't really seem too excited about this experience. I'm just judging that by his performance, where he rarely cracks a smile. He tends to just listen and not do things. And granted, even though in the final half hour it sees him with this weird gun, this weird light gun that is stunning these models, or being used to stun these models. I mean, he just doesn't have much of a character, and it's kind of difficult to empathize with any characters in this movie. I mean, did we know much about the supermodel that got murdered in the beginning? No. We didn't know really anything about them, except that they were just unbelievably obsessed with about getting the zenith of beauty. I mean, just being perfect for the camera, being perfect for these commercials, which of course, you just shake your head and just like, why the obsession? I mean, because these supermodels are all like, well, I'm coming to you because you did Jane and Alice and all these other women. I mean, you should do me too. Let's see here. Now, one thing I forgot to mention a little bit earlier because of the stunt woman that died on the car, the character's name was Tina Cassidy. And the actress's name was Catherine Witt. Yeah, I forgot to mention that she was also in the Lad Company feature Star 80, which came out in 1983 and we'll be doing a commentary on later this summer. But here we have Susan Day naked here, about to get the first ever 3D shading on film. So this was kind of, I mean, here again, it was cool for its time. It was very much cool for its time, sort of like with Brainstorm. It kind of falls into that category where, all this stuff right here. This is the first ever CGI 3D shading of a model. And this movie achieved this feat before Disney's more famous Tron hit the theaters in 1982. And her digitization was visualized by a computer-generated simulation of her body being scanned, notably the first use of shaded 3D CGI in a feature film. Polygonal models obtained by digitizing a human body were used to render the effects. And what's interesting is, of course, Michael Crichton managed to predict the future technology of CGI with this film, but puts more sinister applications. And he was always a skeptic. He was always a skeptic about these new technologies, and that's why he wanted to explore them in these movies. But as we all know, of course, CGI created the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park 12 years after this. And Michael Crichton, in his commentary, he did say that, people found all this stuff rather outrageous upon release, but it took less than a decade for some of its sci-fi elements to find a home in the real world. Quote, sometimes I get in trouble because I have the feeling I live in the future, but I don't actually. I think things have already happened when they haven't happened yet, but they've happened as far as I'm concerned, or I think that it's so self-evident that they're going to happen that I begin to behave as though they had already happened. And for better or worse, other people aren't like that. And according to Michael Crichton's own website, I mean, the author, sadly died in 2008 in his early 70s, or I think even late 60s. He was actually quite young. But over his website, Michael Crichton says, in his own words, this movie came about in an odd time in my life. I had worked for a long time on a book and a movie called Congo. After it was all done and we'd started production, we discovered that it was impossible to get gorillas because gorillas were an endangered species. So I wanted to do something very, very different. And instead of something like Congo, which was really a fantasy, 19th century fantasy at that, I wanted to do something that was much more 20th century. And the elements that went into Looker really were concerns about this incredible focus on beauty, this idea of perfection, the extent to which we're all driven by advertising, and the notion that this emphasis on advertising becomes more extreme as the competition among advertisers increases, that there's going to be an increasing kind of artifice that appears not only in the ads, but also appears in ordinary life as well. And he did a whole article for Advertising Age magazine back in 1981, which is called The Futuristic View of Ads by John Rivette. And I just want to quote this portion of it right here. Let's just say that Michael Crichton has a feeling that some sort of subliminal or high-tech generated advertising is bound to turn up on the tube on one of these days. He calls it, quote, below-the-belt advertising. It probably won't be as blatant as mind control through computerized TV commercials, the theme of his upcoming movie Looker. It is likelier going to be more subtle intrusion, with more market share at stake. Mr. Crichton didn't see it that way when he started the screenplay in the mid-1970s. From the beginning, quote, I tried to write what I thought was a ridiculous story where people were enticed by computer animated images. It was meant to be a comedy originally. Then when we went around to animation houses looking for bids, this odd thing happened, which was that nobody we talked to said, what a bizarre idea, or how silly. Finally, we had a guy who said, well, of course, you know, everyone's doing this work. This is the hot new field. And so that's essentially what pushed him to write and direct this movie, Looker, was based on all that inspiration. And like I said, it's very interesting how CGI is used in this movie, albeit very, very briefly. But here again, you know, this was before Tron. This was way before Jurassic Park. The very first bit of CGI ever used on film, even before Wrath of Khan. And most people think that Wrath of Khan was really the first one, but no, Looker was there first. Looker was there to comment on all this first. And I got to say, I mean, I think Susan Dey just, you know, I don't think she expresses much emotion in this movie. I mean, I understand that after the whole, I mean, she walks around literally like she's in a trance the whole time. I mean, let's put it that way. It's almost like she's been flashed from the very beginning, and she's just been stunned as well. See, that's the thing. I mean, for a 93-minute movie, Looker really stretches it out a little too much. I mean, it just by the time the final half hour comes, I'm going to be like, okay, let's wrap this up here. And by the way, the portion of music that Michael Crichton specifically selected for the 3D imaging sequence was Flute's Concerto Opera 10 No. 2 RV 439 of La Note by Antonio Vivaldi. Yeah, and Vivaldi was an Italian Baroque composer, virtuoso violinist, teacher, impresario, and Roman Catholic priest in the early 18th century. But apparently, Michael Crichton is a huge fan of that composer's work, and he said, I will use him anytime I deem it necessary. And he definitely used it for Looker here. Personally, I prefer the two songs composed by Sue Sad. And the title theme that Sue Sad did for this movie was actually done by Kim Carnes as a cover version for her 1982 album Voyeur. But like I said, this soundtrack has never really gotten a official release. I mean, we only had some LPs for promotional purposes, but it never got the release that I'm sure Sue Sad was counting on. I don't know if it was just a question of advertising, ironically enough, but this movie just falls short. It falls short on what its goals are, of what it's trying to say about this industry and everything. Of course, here again, for 1981, there are specific things that are interesting about it, but at the same time, it's just, you know, this is just unfortunately, this was a misfire, and unfortunately, Michael Crichton had several misfires in his career. One of those misfires is actually the movie he did after Looker called Runaway with Tom Selleck, which I'll probably wait and talk about a little bit later, because when we get robots involved here, because that's another thing. He's always been fascinated by, Michael Crichton has always been fascinated by robots. But I think we should go ahead and talk about one of my favorite supporting players in this movie, who is, of course, the Mustache Man, played by Tim Rosevich. And like I said, I already mentioned that he was in Cloak and Dagger, which is one of my favorite films. And let's see, he's the brother. Oh, he's no longer with us. He passed away in 2018. But he was an American football linebacker. where he played college football at the University of Southern California and was one of 5 USC Trojans players taken in the first round of the '68 NFL draft after his senior year. And like I said, he's doing the flashing right here with the gun that was seen earlier for. There he is. He's doing it again for Robert Finney. In March of 1974, Tim Rosevich was selected by the Philadelphia Bell in the first round of the WFL Pro Draft. He opted to sign with the Philadelphia Bell of the World Football League, where he played until the league folded midway through the 1975 season. Then he was in a couple episodes of Charlie's Angels. Then he was in the main event as a character named Cannibal, who unfortunately I don't remember. The Ninth Configuration, he had an uncredited role as a biker. That was a movie written by the same guy that wrote The Exorcist. Actually, one of the few films he directed aside from Exorcist 3, William Peter Blatty. I haven't had a Royal Crown Cola in forever. I'd rather have a Royal Crown than a Budweiser, that's for sure. It's like, dude, you live in a Malibu beach house. Why the hell are you drinking Budweiser? Seriously. It's like... but Tim Rosevich, he was also in The Long Riders, the great 1980 movie directed by Walter Hill, which has like 5 or 6 different sets of brothers. Great Western movie. And he was also later in the Ladd Company film Night Shift, which we will be doing a commentary on Night Shift on Saturday night, July 30th. Go ahead and set your calendars for that, because I've been waiting a long time to talk about Night Shift. Tim Rosevich has a great a small role in this film. We'll see it when we get to it. But yeah, Saturday, July 30th at 9 p.m. probably, we'll be doing a 40th anniversary for Night Shift. Definitely looking forward to that, because that is my favorite comedy of all time. Yes, indeed. See, like, all this stuff right here, like, oh yeah, you forgot the time and everything. Like, there's nothing suspenseful about any of this. It just kind of plods along with these characters that we don't really like or really care about, dealing with the situation that is mildly interesting, but to me, there's not much of a payoff in this movie. Just to give everybody a timestamp real quick, we are approximately 50 minutes, 50. We are 50 minutes into Looker, and we have approximately 43 minutes left to go. And then at 11 p.m., we'll start the commentary for Outland. Now, we're about to find out here that the title Looker actually has a double meaning. Obviously, Looker means, an exceptionally pretty woman who, is a looker, obviously. But Looker actually has another use in this movie as the acronym is supposed to be Light Ocular Oriented Kinetic Emotive Responses. And Albert Finney is literally going to give a word-by-word definition as to what exactly that means. And I will go ahead and relay it right now. It's a computer-generated optical pulse synchronized with cortical alpha rhythms, producing an auto-hypnotic, suggestible trance. The gun is an amalgam of... Michael Crichton said on the commentary that the gun that was inspired for this Looker thing, where people would get flashed and go into these trances. He said it was inspired by an amalgam of different power drills, but nothing too outrageous. And for the alarms in this movie, he said he had to listen to many, many alarms to make sure that the sound would sync right with everything else going on in the scene. Okay, so here is a robot that obviously is completely oblivious to Albert Finney's and Susan Day's presence. And as soon as this robot came on, I immediately thought about Michael Crichton's next film, which he made for TriStar Pictures, called Runaway, starring Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons from the rock band Kiss, in a very, very memorable role as the villain. I mean, that's the thing. That's saying something, because, look, James Coburn was a great actor. I think he was kind of wasted in this movie. And but in 1984, when Michael Crichton did Runaway, he got a much better villain, believe it or not, in Gene Simmons from Kiss. And the movie also had Cynthia Rhodes and Christy Alley in one of her first films. And it was essentially about, bad robots gone, good robots gone bad, where we now have robots in our everyday lives doing menial tasks in the kitchen and cooking and that kind of thing. And just like everybody has like their own robots now. They're almost like mechanized pets. And basically Gene Simmons was turning good robots into bad robots. And so Tom Selleck is basically part of this special police force to track him down and everything. Fairly simple plot, just like Looker. And like Looker, the effects, while cool at the time, they looked really, really dated and kind of laughable now. But look, I mean, how can you say no to Gene Simmons with deadly mechanical spiders with acid coming out of their needles and everything? And the entire climax of Runaway, where Tom Selleck is suffering from vertigo, and he actually has to get away from these spider robots on the top of a building under construction. Here again, for 1984, it must have been really cool stuff, but unfortunately, Runaway was kind of burned at the theaters by a little film called The Terminator, which of course was directed by James Cameron in 1984. Excuse me just 1 second. You see, here he finds a book that explains everything you need to know about the light, ocular-oriented, kinetic, emotive responses weapon. They're not actors. They're computer-generated images. I don't know. They look like actors to me. Of course, it's that illusion, Now, why this is reminding me of the 1981 movie Heartbeeps, I can't say for sure. If you remember that with Andy Kaufman, that was a romantic comedy that bombed in 1981. Yeah, so she just got hypnotized by the commercial, by these computer-generated images. It's amazing. I mean, like when we were talking in the Planet of the Apes commentaries about performance capture and everything, this is essentially that. Oh, and this actress who just her eyes just lit up blue, and we'll see her in these different. That actress's name is actually Catherine Parks. And if you remember, Catherine Parks was actually in Friday the 13th Part 3, where there she is right here. She's the one that's basically hypnotizing Susan Day from the commercial. But she was in Friday the 13th Part 3 as the girl that Shelley, the nerd, tried to get with. And he was the one that brought the hockey mask with him and everything. And, he wanted to talk to Catherine Parks and everything. What's really cool, and I know this is a tangent, but I have to mention it. There was a Friday the 13th part. There was a Friday the 13th documentary that came out several years ago called His Name Was Jason. Now, this was before Crystal Lake Memories. You know, that big book became this like 7-hour documentary and everything. Well, on this original documentary called His Name Was Jason, um, Catherine Parks actually does a little bit with Larry Zerner, who plays Shelley, where basically they're asking people if you want to get a lawyer to help you fight Jason in court. Larry Zerner's your man. And it's funny because on the part 3 commentary, they said that they couldn't find Catherine Parks when they tried to look for her. And of course, Shelley, played by Larry Zerner on the commentary, is basically like, oh, Catherine, if you see this, give us a call. And apparently she did, because she wound up doing that fake commercial for Larry Zerner for that documentary. But it's only available on the DVD of His Name Is Jason. It's not available anywhere else. It might be on YouTube. I don't know. But and here, Albert Finney is going to be flashed more than enough times by the looker gun by Tim Rosevich here until Albert Finney figures out a way to get back at him. We polished over 1,000 nails to prove it. In consumer tests, 111 women went through 3 days of punishment to get their nails right. Like, some of this is actually pretty funny. Of course, I'm serious. Look at old commercials. I mean, I can't stand commercials with a passion. I mean, whenever I watch new television shows, or I always try to avoid commercials, even if I have to pay for it, I always avoid commercials. But look at some old commercials from like the 70s or the 80s, and I'm telling you, you're going to have a blast watching them, because for some reason, those old commercials are so bad and so low budget and everything that they're actually very funny. And here it does have a little bit of that ridiculousness when it comes to the commercials. So I think now is probably a good time to talk about the Blu-ray for Looker, which this came out, I believe, in 2013. Okay. Oh, forgive me, 2018. So this Blu-ray came out by Warner Archive in 2018. It does have an audio commentary with writer-director Michael Crichton, which was filmed a year before he passed away. This was recorded in 2007 for the original DVD. And aside from the commentary, there is also a deleted scene used for the network television at the time, which, of course, James Coburn was complaining about earlier when I quoted him, that, you know, they cut out this entire scene where James Coburn literally explains his whole end game when it comes to this looker technology. It kind of removes some important bits in the plot when that was taken out and used for just the television versions. I actually have an answer for why they decided to use that, put that sequence in back for television, is because in order to fill a 2-hour time slot, you need a movie that lasts 100 minutes. And the movie Looker, as it played in theaters in 1981, was 93 minutes. And I'm sure that there's probably was other stuff cut. Because the thing is, this is supposed to be an R-rated movie, too. I mean, it feels like an R-rated movie. It has more nudity in a PG-rated movie I've ever seen before. Well, maybe aside from Can't Stop the Music with Lee Taylor Young, where you actually go to a YMCA and you see a guy as hung as a horse, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. But yeah, this movie, I mean, this is, for a PG-rated movie, this is soft. It's very soft in terms of there's nothing gritty about it. There's nothing really all that exciting about it. And actually, it's just at this moment right here where they run out of the building. And we go into that deleted scene where they're actually walking on the sky roof and everything, and you can see everybody down below for this meeting that James Coburn has called with a bunch of people to advertise his commercials and everything. But yeah, that was all completely cut out, and thus it kind of like I said, it was an 8-minute sequence, and it was kind of pertinent. So yeah, so if you really want to see this sequence, you have to get the Blu-ray. I don't understand why they didn't bother just putting the sequence back in the film proper. Maybe they just decided the quality wasn't up to scratch and everything in order to do that. But if you want the Blu-ray, you do get a decent commentary with Michael Crichton, and you also get that 8-minute extended sequence that they use for television, as well as the original theatrical trailer. So for a movie which only made $3 million at the box office, here's a rare instance where Warner Archive actually put some bonus features on one of their Blu-rays. But look, I'll be perfectly honest with all of you right now. But if you really want this Blu-ray, I don't want it after I finish this commentary. Send me an email, stonegasman.com, and I'll send you this Blu-ray for free. First come, first serve. If you really want this Blu-ray, just email me at stonegasman.com, and I'll email it and I'll send it to you free of charge. Because I'm not going to watch Looker again. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't even think it's Michael Crichton's worst movie. But at the same time, it's such a disappointment considering the talent involved, and here again, the CGI technology and everything. I mean, it should be better. It should be more entertaining and more riveting than it actually is. But here again, Albert Finney, like in this scene right here, Albert Finney looks like he's just sleepwalking throughout the whole thing with this weird looker gun. You know what I'm saying? Stone has been dropping commentaries left and right. Oh, yes, I am, Kristen. Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. But yeah, I hope you're doing well tonight, sir, as our Born to Be Rad and Slay Shit. Or Slash It. Slash It. Yeah, there you go. Oh God, look at that phone, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is early 1980s. This technology is all long, long gone now. But here again, there's that thread. There's that one little thread of prescience that Michael Crichton has with what we now know as performance capture technology and everything. There's that one sliver of interest in this movie when it comes to what he was exploring and how ahead of his time he was for a movie like Looker. But here again, I just don't think there's a memorable performance. I do think that the deleted sequence caused more harm than good. Like I said, I do think that James Coburn is right about that. I mean, that's the thing. The last half hour of this movie is literally Albert Finney walking around with this looker gun. And it's not exciting. It's just not very exciting in any way. And funnily enough, this was the only movie that Michael Crichton said he made over the course of his career where he went over budget. Let's see. Okay. And just to round out, let me do another timestamp here real quick. We are at 1 hour and 6 minutes and 30 seconds. 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 30 seconds into Looker. And we have approximately 26 minutes left to go. The Digital Matrix Incorporated headquarters building is the landmark hillside campus of the Arts Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. Julie Christie, who won the Oscar for the 1965 film Darling, she was originally cast as Jennifer Long, but had to drop out due to other commitments. And of course, she was replaced by Susan Day. Michael Crichton had Albert Finney do all his own stunts after learning how much better it was for the film while making The Great Train Robbery with Sean Connery. That's the movie that he made based on his book right before this. And that's the thing. Interestingly enough, Michael Crichton, he would go back and forth to, writing another book every 2 years and then making a movie in between. 1973, he made his debut with Westworld. Then he also made Coma, which is actually a really good thriller from 1978 starring Michael Douglas and Guinevere Bujold. The 1978 film Coma, which is actually a very good thriller. Then he did Looker. Then he did Runaway. And then really, his career didn't really explode until he published Jurassic Park in 1990. And even though he didn't direct the first Jurassic Park movie, he did have, of course, a hand in adapting his own book for the movie. Michael Crichton pays attention to test screenings as he wants his film to be understood. Quote, "It's one thing if they don't like it, but if they really don't get it, then that produces a different sort of response because I think audiences what tell you if they don't understand it. It's a problem he encountered before and up including Twister. Test audiences liked it well enough, but they, quote, had no idea why these people were chasing tornadoes, and so as the movie went on, they liked the movie less and less because it just seemed like they were crazy people. Additions were made to explain what the characters were doing and why, and everyone was happy." He says all this on the audio commentary, by the way. Now, here again, Tim Rosevich, he doesn't have a single word of dialogue in this whole movie, but, he's menacing enough. He's definitely menacing enough as the aptly named Mustache Man. The sequence where Finney's character is ambushed by shooters armed with real guns sees them having fogged the room so the light can't work. It makes Crichton recall how Pacific Islanders first dealt with invading Europeans who had guns by planning their battles for rainy days, which would ruin the gunpowder. The commentary is actually really well done. Considering the fact that he recorded it only a year before he passed, if you're a Michael Crichton fan, I think that Looker is probably a must-own. And here again, I am serious. Send me an email to stonegasman.com if you really want this Blu-ray. Just give me your address, and I'll go ahead and send it to you for free. I'll say that again before the end of the movie. Now, this was another car that they used for the... Michael Crichton joked on the commentary track that this car never would have been able to get over the wall where the fountain is. See, it never would have made that. But he said, you learn about those things and you live and learn. So, of course, everybody is staring at him. How he got into this fountain. And there's Tim Rosevich just walking around like a normal bystander as the cops come in. And he actually joked that I suppose this kind of flash from the gun is a prelude to Men in Black, or something like that. I don't know. That's what he actually says on the commentary. um, Apparently, Susan Day did actually several nude scenes for other films. I mean, that's the thing, is that this film has an unusually high amount of female nudity for a PG rated movie. It's just unusually high, and that's what I'm saying, is that there was probably more graphic material in the original cut. The flash meant to indicate the light gun had been used was added in post production. Initially, it was just the minor changes in background or on clocks that were designed to let viewers know that time had suddenly passed. But Crichton felt that the audiences had been trained to ignore small background changes as part of the movie making process. That bled over into other elements, as well as what Crichton saw as making plot points more explicit than he'd otherwise planned. His goal with the gun and other objects was not to have them be futuristic looking. The film was meant to be in the present, and he didn't want the sci-fi objects to stand out from the other traditional lab sets. The third act sequence with Albert Finney's character being stalked through the automated sound stages is why Michael Crichton wanted composer Barry Dvorak to do the score. Crichton liked his, quote, electronic edginess and kind of pop sense for the film, and felt the composer's use of the repetitive electronic beats throughout that whole sequence was a great choice. And we're coming up to that fairly close here, but Albert Finney just knocked out one of the security guards. So now he's going to go in undercover as the security person. Actually, have we talked about James Coburn? I don't think we have yet. I mean, I know he mentioned he won an Oscar for, if I can remember without looking, I believe it was Affliction. Yeah, Affliction. Yeah, it was Affliction with, oh, what's his name? Oh, yeah, 1997. Yeah, with Nick Nolte and Sissy Spacek and Willem Dafoe. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for that. However, James Coburn had been around since the late 1950s, actually. He started out in Ride Lonesome and Face of a Fugitive. He was then in the Magnificent Seven, the classic 1960 film where he played Brit. Then he did Hell is for Heroes, where he played Corporal Frank Henshaw. That was a Steve McQueen movie directed by Don Siegel. And then he was, of course, in The Great Escape, where he played Lewis Sedgwick, the quote-unquote manufacturer. And that's one of James Coburn's most famous roles. He was also in Charade as Tex Pant Hollow, Kings of the Sun, the Americanization of Emily with Julie Andrews, Major Dundee in 1965, The Loved One, Our Man Flint, which is actually one of his most famous roles, as he played Derek Flint in both Our Man Flint and the sequel In Like Flint. He was also in the Blake Edwards comedy What Did You Do in the War, Daddy? Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round, which actually that film is more famous now for being the first one for Harrison Ford, who played a waiter in that. And he was also in a film, I actually have it on DVD behind me. I'm not going to dig it out, though. A 1970 film directed by Sidney Lumet called Last of the Mobile Hotshots. And it's not very good. I mean, it's based on a very failed play by Tennessee Williams. And James Coburn played a drunk in that movie. I mean, very Southern fried drunk in a Tennessee Williams melodrama. And he was kind of outacted by his co-stars in that. But he was also in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, The Last of Sheila, Bite the Bullet, Hard Times, Midway, Cross Iron, California Suite. He had a cameo in the Muppet movie. And see, did the television version of Valley of the Dolls the same year as Looker. Let's see, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, Maverick with Mel Gibson, The Setup, Eraser, where he played Chief Arthur Beller. He was also in The Nutty Professor, in the Eddie Murphy Nutty Professor movies as Harlan Hartley. And then in 1997, he did Affliction, where he won the Academy Award, obviously. He also did The Second Civil War, Payback, Noah's Ark, Missing Pieces. He was in Monsters Incorporated, gave the voice of Henry J. Waternoose III. And then finally, his last two films were Snow Dogs with Show Me the Money, Cuba Gooding Jr. Somebody should show him a jail cell, actually, but an American Gun. So he made his last two movies in 2002. Did a lot of television work in the 60s and 70s as well. But I think I'm pretty sure most people know James Coburn best from, like I said, those films in the 60s, like Charade and The Great Escape, different movies like that. And apparently Michael Crichton received some flack for killing Lee Taylor Young's character Jennifer right here. Because, quote, it was a kind of a problem. There wasn't anybody else to kill, I guess. And there's also that weird issue about, what is the culpability of someone who's a hanger-on, and do they really need to die, unquote. He answers his own question by adding that, quote, movies really are morality plays. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, see, let me do a timestamp. We are 1 hour and 19 minutes into Looker. We have approximately 14 minutes left to go as this crowd discovers this new technology, which James Coburn's character is pimping. Oh, and of course, he has a senator I mean, like I said, politics, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh my God, it's the lizard people. Now that I have your attention, make sure you vote for me. See there's brainwashing right there. This is definitely political brainwashing. Against government, inflation, and bureaucracy, against pollution of our environment and our lives. There is still time. Just vote for me. Yeah, see, like all this stuff right here, it's just not very exciting. It's just not very exciting. I mean, let's see. So just a quick reminder, we're going to be finishing Looker here in about 10 minutes. We're going to be taking a 20-minute break, and I will be back to do the commentary for Outland. It will be on a different stream, and I will post a link to that stream here in a few minutes right before the end credits for Looker. We'll be doing this at approximately 11 p.m., which will be about 25 minutes after Looker ends. I will go ahead and actually get the link for that right now. Anybody who's out in the chat, let me know if you've seen Looker before, if you have any comments on it, or if you're interested in it. I mean, like I said, send me an email with your address, and I'll give you the Blu-ray for free. because I want somebody to enjoy this. I want somebody to, have this in their collection and be proud of it. Here again, it's just not really my cup of tea. And the interesting thing is, of course, with the Ladd Company, because they won Best Picture. They won Best Picture for 1981 for co-producing Chariots of Fire with Warner Brothers. And so after that, all the Ladd Company features would be released through Warner Brothers as a distributor. And of course, Outland and Looker were two of the first ones to do that. Coming up here in a week or so, I'll be doing the other 1981 Ladd Company movie called Body Heat, written and directed by Lawrence Kasdan and starring William Hurt and Kathleen Turner. And let me tell you, this film right here is legendary. It's a legendary film noir. It's Kathleen Turner's scorching debut as an actress. And very much looking forward to talking about Body Heat with you. And then later in the month, we will be doing a couple of other Ladd Company releases. Night Shift, as I mentioned before, my favorite comedy of all time. That'll be the last Saturday night of the month. And then also I will be doing Blade Runner. And I will be doing a commentary for the final cut of Blade Runner. So these are all Ladd Company releases. And the only one I don't care for among this group is, of course, Looker. But I still wanted to do this commentary because I've now kind of devoted myself to doing commentaries for all these Ladd Company releases, basically 24 out of 26 of them. Because there are two of them. One is a foreign film, which got distribution only, that you can't find it anywhere, unfortunately. And the other is actually the Ladd Company's very first movie that they released, which was actually a music video, essentially a recording of Bette Midler at 4 different concerts. And it was filmed, it was released under the title of Divine Madness in 1980. And that was the Ladd Company's very first theatrical release. And then, of course, they put out, the next one they put out was Outland, and then Looker, and then Body Heat, which came in August. And so, yeah, so 24 out of the 26 theatrically released Ladd Company features, I will be doing commentaries on those for the next 5 or 6 months. Tim Rosevich. See, who was it that Michael Crichton compared him to? You need to look where you're going, Tim. Who did he say he looked like in the commentary track? I forget. Oh. I think he was comparing him to like Clint Eastwood or somebody, believe it or not. Oh, now we got this gorgeous blonde in a pink and white bikini. This car will leave you breathless. It's like on The Price is Right, where they, one of the originally back in the 60s and 70s, they would have what they called Barker's Beauties, where they would showcase all these products and everything. And usually when there's beach stuff involved, they would come out in a bikini. Well, a lot of people think that Bob Barker is some kind of hero of television, but in reality, I think he's pretty much a scumbag because all of Barker's Beauties sued him for sexual harassment. All of them sued Bob Barker for sexual harassment. And as far as I know, he paid him off, but got off because of his name and his power, sadly. Okay, so we are now 1 hour and 26 minutes. 1 hour and 26 minutes into Looker. We're going to be concluding this movie in about 6 minutes here. Just about 6 more minutes. We have to kill James Coburn already. That's basically all he has to do. Now, but I do like this little final gag, right? What happened to Tim Rosevich's character? See, he falls back on the table, and the table rolls to the middle of the set, where, of course, we have CGI replications of other people in the shot, and people are like, why is this dead body on the table with this family that is advertising a cereal? This is actually pretty funny, but it's like the only amusing thing that happens in the third act here. Oh, they killed my hanger-on. Oh no. And I believe for this particular role, they wanted to get somebody who was just as beautiful as all the other lookers, but just slightly older and maybe a little bit more wise as to what exactly she's up to. But like, wait a minute, there's not supposed to be a dead body on the table in the kitchen. Yeah, this is just. It's like for a thriller, this goes at a snail's pace. It really does. I can't wait to get to Outland because watch Sean Connery punch space in the face. Yeah, poor James Coburn. He's barely in this movie. Seriously, he is barely in this movie. I mean, he was absolutely right. I mean, considering the amount of money they spent on it, I mean, they didn't have to cut out that 8-minute sequence, which was kind of pertinent to the overall plot. Because it makes sense. If they were going to use it for the television print, why didn't they just put it on the theatrical print anyway? Spurt makes any mouth fresh. And so finally he gets shot. Not by Albert Finney, of course, but give your mouth that taste of spring. uh, So yeah, James Coburn has finally been defeated. And he actually appears on his own Spurt commercial. Yeah, what more is there to say about Looker? I can't think of anything else. If I were you, there are better Michael Crichton movies out there. There are better Albert Finney movies out there, and there's certainly better James Coburn movies out there. This one, I know that there are people that have a soft spot for it. I mean, I noticed on Twitter there were people that talked positively about it, and even the reviewer at Blu-ray.com gives the movie the benefit of the doubt and said, I got a soft spot for this movie. I'm probably the only one, but I do have a soft spot for it. But yeah, and here we have the ending to Michael Crichton's Looker, a Michael Crichton film, co-starring Darryl Hickman, Catherine Witt, and Terry Wells. Terry Wells, of course, being the 1981 Playboy Playmate of the Year, who was dating Michael Crichton at the time. And here we have Looker and High Wire performed by Sue Sad. Yes. Music and lyrics by Michael Towers and the music composer. Yeah. And so we basically have, there's Catherine Parks, by the way, who was later in Friday the 13th, Part 3. I'm not sure how many people have actually recognized her from this film, but I actually didn't even recognize her until her name popped up at the beginning of the credits, to be perfectly honest. But here we have a great reprise of the Sue Sad song, the title song "Looker." I actually really like both of her songs in this movie. It's one of the few things from this movie I actually got out of that I really liked. Now, see, what is everybody staring at in this commercial? Is it the woman or is it the brightly colored sail? Just Looker commercials: Liberty, Ravish, Believe, Warrior, and New Wave. Written and produced by Robert Chandler. Liberty, Ravish, and New Wave co-produced by production partners. And here we have our cast. Like I said, nobody really stands out in this movie. I mean, I kind of like the fact that Tim Rosevich is playing Mustache Man, but otherwise, I mean, Terry Kaiser has a small role, and there's Darryl Mori's credit playing a commercial assistant producer. But let me just go ahead and grab this link real quick as the end credits come to their close here. Okay. Okay, here is the link for the commentary track for Peter Hyam's Outland, which, like I said, I will start in approximately 25 minutes here. I will be back. Just go to that link, and I will be ready at that time at 11 p.m. for my commentary for Peter Hyam's Outland. So hope you all enjoyed Michael Crichton's film Looker from 1981. And like I said, one last time, first come, first serve. My email address is stonegasman@gmail.com. Send me an email. If you want this Blu-ray, let me know. Just give me your address, and I will ship it out to you free of charge. So anyway, I want somebody to enjoy this and own it who's going to watch it multiple times, because it's just not going to be me. Well, anyway, so I will be back in approximately 25 minutes. Just go to that link, and I will see you all for the commentary for Outland. See you all soon.